Welcome to Shadow of Truth with your host, Dave Kranzler from InvestmentResearchDynamics.com and Rory Hall from thedailycoin.org. And today is Monday, June the 20th, 2016, and this is a market update for today. Thank you all for being here. We certainly appreciate it. I presume you're referring to the assassination of Joe Cox.
Well, I think there's two things going on. Yes, I am referring to that. I mean, that to me was pretty obvious. But I think to most people, most people who search for the truth and look at the real news. But the other thing that occurred to me is all of a sudden after that situation, all of a sudden the media started blitzing the airwaves with, all of a sudden there's a turnaround in the support for a Brexit in the polls, right?
Right, and that tells me that they're going to rig the vote.
Well, it's already been rigged. The damage is done. It's the same dynamic that happened to Bernie Sanders in California when they came out the night before the vote and said Hillary Clinton has enough delegates to win. The AP released a story that said, I think it was AP, that said Hillary Clinton's clinched the nomination. And that was the night before the California vote, and she needed the California vote to clinch the nomination, and Sanders was ahead in the polls at that point. And then all of a sudden after that, she won California and obviously the nomination. To me, it's the same population control dynamic here. And that's what it's about, is population control.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, they're not going to. And I mean, we could go all the way back to the gold referendum in Switzerland.
Perfect. Right. Yep. I've been using that analogy. Exactly.
I mean, it's no different, I mean, and during that situation, the central bankers and the bankers of all stripes were not supposed to be saying anything, and all of a sudden, here comes the president of the ECB, or one of the central banks over there, the PNB, came out and started saying, you guys need to vote, against this gold referendum. And it's like, you're not supposed to be doing that, dude.
Right. It's same exact dynamic. I mean, that referendum had overwhelming popular support up until about, the moment that they went into the vote. And then all of a sudden, the no repatriation vote, the anti-repatriation or anti-referendum vote prevailed by a wide margin. Same thing in California. Bernie Sanders had what looked like a convincing lead in the polls, leading up to the point where the press releases hit that said Hillary Clinton's got the nomination sewed up, which implied that she was going to win California.
Exactly.
And then it actually, I thought that it was some hacker, or maybe it was even WikiLeaks, had released emails that showed that the Clinton camp conspired with the media to do that, to release the early headline that said she sewed up the nomination.
That wouldn't surprise me in the least. I missed anything of that nature, but it wouldn't surprise me at all that happened.
I mean, the whole thing is, especially the West, is highly controlled by the people who are in control of the avenues of information and media and news release.
Yes. I mean, and until we start making strides, and when I say we, I'm talking about the collective of people that are actually reporting what's happening, the alternative media, if you will, then it's not going to matter. I mean, because people. I saw the headline this morning that said, NBA fans up in arms over a rigged basketball game, and it's like, who cares? It's a freaking basketball game, But they're completely silent on the rigging of a vote that actually matters, like California.
Right. Yeah. It's important that they might have rigged an NBA basketball game, but let's see. Elections in the U.S.
Yeah, not so much.
Rigging's, it's okay to rig those.
It doesn't affect my self-esteem, Dave. It just affects my rights and liberties. You know?
So anyway, I mean that's why I'm saying, you know, mission accomplished.
Yep.
No Brexit vote looks like it's probably going to win unless they're releasing complete disinformation about what the polls are saying, which they're probably doing anyway to try and discourage people from even going out to vote. And to tell you the truth, I knew last night when I saw him hit gold. Gold was down about $8 early in the evening, and I knew that it was because it was the knee-jerk reaction to the Brexit thing, and the idea being, oh, well, gold ran up ahead of the expectation that the Brexit vote was going to pass. And actually, gold started running up. Gold ran up a lot more than it's getting hit right now. And the fact that it's only down about $10, that tells you there's a lot more going on in the run up with the price of gold than what was going to happen with Brexit.
Yeah, I mean, people they want gold. I mean, it's just
exactly. Well, and but they want gold for a lot of reasons that don't have anything to do with whether or not Britain stays in the EU or not.
I mean, I was talking to Keith Neumeyer late last week, and I asked him specifically about these prominent, big name investors, like Soros and Dalio and Druckenmiller and all these, these big name investors moving into gold, whether they're paper gold or physical gold or whatever. And he said that that's a signal that people need to pay attention to, and the smarter people will pay attention to, and they will begin moving into physical gold and paper gold. And
right.
So, I mean, I think, what do you think as far as their influence on the market in that manner? I mean, would you agree with that? I mean, it seems to make sense to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, to the extent that people need confirmation of something they've been thinking about doing anyway, and then you see these high-profile guys coming out, and they have to file their holdings with the SEC like Soros does in his funds, or they just come out like Druckenmiller and said, hey, we're buying gold here. Gold is the only thing that makes sense. When you start seeing guys like that come out and say that, it kind of confirms for anyone who's been thinking about gold, who's been looking at this and saying, stuff's really messed up here. And actually, this reminds me of an interesting story, and I'm going to talk to him a little bit more on Thursday night about it. But Titus was texting me over the weekend, and he was home in North Carolina visiting with a group of friends. And he said, these are people who previously have been seriously what you would consider stereotypical sheeple. And he said, every one of them to a person was talking about how they know that something's really messed up in the system. They are starting to talk about hoarding food, getting their money out of their 401ks. They all know that they're never going to see their 401ks. And also they're all going to start buying guns and precious metals. And he was flabbergasted when he heard these people talking like this, because he was like, prior to this conversation, I would have said these people are just the same type of media zombies that everyone else in this country is. And he said, you know what? Maybe there is a serious grassroots movement going on where people are starting to get it. They're just doing it quietly. You know what I mean?
I would agree with that 100%. I mean, and I've been saying this for several months. I mean, as far as what Trump and Sanders have done to the mindset of the American people. I mean, love them, hate them, I could care less. It is not important. What is important is the fact that they have awakened the silent majority. There are people out there that are super pissed off. They don't know what the problem is, and he's giving, at least these two candidates are giving them different perspectives of what the problem actually is. Even though they're on the the edge of the problem, the actual problems, they're at least giving them, food for thought, and they're reacting to that. They're responding, and you can see it everywhere. There's a different feel, in my opinion, going on everywhere you go. You go into a grocery store, you go out to a restaurant. It's completely different. I mean, at least that's what I'm experiencing anyway. And it sounds like Titus is kind of confirming what I've been feeling. So,
Yep, that's exactly right. I'm going to talk to him a little bit more about it on Thursday night, but he was actually quite blown away by what he heard amongst this group of friends who previously they were like everyone else out there. They had their head in the sand and they gobbled up everything they heard on CNN or Fox News.
good for them. I'm glad they're seeing the light, if you will.
Right, exactly.
Come into their senses. Not
So
allowed.
at any rate, just to kind of translate this into a market update, I think right now, I think all the Fed's trying to do is prevent the stock market from really selling off hard, because every time it starts to go over the cliff, all of a sudden, big buy volume, a big volume buy volume comes in, and there's a huge buy spike. And then to me, that's what triggers hedge fund momentum algorithm buying, and then it pushes the S&P back up. I think it's very significant that the S&P, it looked like it was going to go hit all-time highs the week before last, and it failed at the 220, 221 level. It didn't even get within 10 points of its all-time high, and it dropped 4 out of 5 days last week, which I think is very significant. And I think a lot of what you're seeing today is, obviously, it was knee-jerk algo reaction to the fact that Brexit's probably going to get voted down. And I think it's also some algo short covering and momentum chasing. And I still think this market's getting ready to tip over.
Does the FOMC even matter anymore? I mean, as far as Yellen coming out and doing their little, song and dance program. I mean, is seriously, do you think that people are even paying attention to that? Because I don't think they are. I mean, I think it's, that the dog and pony show that they've been running for the past couple of years, it's just, everybody's just kind of like, well, okay, whatever.
That's a really good point, Rory. And I think you're right. We're probably going to start seeing a lot more people question whether or not the FOMC even matters, because it really doesn't. At this point, everything that they've done has been just a disaster in terms of implementing policy that was supposed to fix the problems. They've made the problems worse along with government. And now it's clear to everyone that the entire economic, financial situation is out of their control. And unfortunately, it looks like the political situation is starting to spiral out of control. And just one more point, let's try and keep this short, but a very, very interesting thing happened this weekend when that German chancellor, or whatever he was, I think he was a ambassador or something, German official came out and said, we don't like the fact that the U.S. is being so belligerent towards Russia, and it's not even being provoked by Russia.
Exactly.
Because I've always thought that Germany at some point was going to pull away from NATO out of disgust with the U.S.'s imperialism. And it's clearly the U.S. that's driving what NATO's doing. And if that relationship fractures, that's where I think we could really see World War III start. Because at that point, everything will just be so completely out of the U.S. elitist control militarily that they're just going to lash out against anyone and everyone.
Well, as we've discussed before, with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, I mean, the Europeans have a lot at stake with what the U.S. is doing in light of, poking the Russian bear in the eye continuously for the last year and a half, 2 years. And it seems like every day it gets, worse and worse and worse. And they have the most to lose, because guess where those bombs are going to start dropping? In their backyard, in their front yard. So it's like, y'all need to chill out, because You know, it's us that's going to take the brunt of your nonsense, not you. So
That's right.
I don't blame Germany one bit. I saw there's been a couple of reports about that situation and about this German official coming out and basically, you know, backhanding the NATO officials, the neocons here for continually doing that. It's I am so grateful that these things are happening. I can't even begin to tell you, Dave. Seriously.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, though, Rory. I agree with you, and hopefully there's going to be a peaceful resolution to this. But unfortunately, I think the U.S. is going to ramp it up and start World War III. I mean, I read this article over the weekend where Putin was he said, okay, U.S., you guys want a regime change over there in Syria? Let's hold an election. And the U.S. is all of a sudden has decided, they may go in there and try and overthrow Assad unilaterally along with Saudi Arabia. What happened to the democratic process? Well, we saw that the democratic process in the primaries doesn't exist anymore. The way that the establishment Republicans tried to get rid of Trump, and the way that the Democratic establishment elitists completely doused Sanders.
Similar to what they did to Ron Paul in 2012.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Just on the other side of the aisle this time.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that probably Putin made that statement, making that argument in order to expose the vote rigging that's going on. I mean,
well, that plus the U.S. hypocrisy. There's no question about it.
Right.
I knew that the U.S. was going to reject that idea. It's just like when he threw out there offering to cooperate with the U.S. in attacking ISIS. And the U.S. said no. And Kerry said no thanks. He knew he was going to get that. He just wants to make it obvious to the world what's going on.
Right. Yep. And that's what's going on here as well. So
that's right.
Just another day in the life.
That's right. Well,
we're just trying to expose
wind this down.
Let's wind it down, Dave. I guess we'll pick it up on Thursday, and hopefully the chewing gum, rubber bands, and Band-Aids will hold the thing together until then. So
that's right. And I believe we have a special guest this Friday on the Shadow of Truth.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we're going to do Shadow of Truth not on Thursday, but on Friday this week, because we have Mr. Craig Hemke, also known as Turd Ferguson, the president and founder of TF Metals Reports Turdville.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to that. So, but until Thursday's market update, I will speak to you later.
All right, buddy. Have a good afternoon.
You too.
Bye.